Good evening and welcome to the Spiritual Speakeasy, where the bar is always open and the spirits are served. Hello, Ravey Rave, all my viewers that are out there. Hi. Tonight we have Jim Diddy on. He is a shaman, a drum maker, brings wonderful shamanic energy every place he goes, cleaning people who need to be cleaned, and let's bring him on. Welcome, Jim.
Hi, Julie. Hi, thank you.
So tell us how you got started doing this and what you're all about. Tell people what a shaman is, first of all, because a lot of people think that that's like completely different than what a modern day shaman is.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would use the word shaman for myself, but I don't know because I see a lot of people with that title that I don't know. Just for me, I would say I'm a shamanic practitioner because I like to surf those altered states of consciousness, right? I think that I think when we talk about a shamanic journey to another world, I have my doubts as whether it's another world or just another level of our own consciousness, right? So I sort of think we kind of create all that within ourselves, and so yeah, the word shaman can linguistically be traced back to Siberia, and I think those I don't know. I think there's a lineage with that, right? So I think sort of those people are traditionally trained and they're brought up in that lineage, and over here in the West, I think it's just very rare. So they have a lot of shake and bake shamanism classes, or I don't know. I've seen folks that maybe for example, maybe a Peruvian shaman will come to an area and then he will set up a mesa and do a ritual or ceremony, and like everybody kind of observes that, and then they take that next step when he leaves. Then they kind of create the mesa with the things he created the mesa with. But I don't think that what's sacred to a culture in Peru and the Andes isn't necessarily what's sacred to a culture in the Midwest, or
That's very true.
Yeah, I think it's easy to. I don't know. I sort of feel like here in the United States and in the West, that society is pretty much devoid of a spiritual history, or because the United States was formed basically as a melting pot, other than the indigenous peoples that were here that got pushed out, right? So
right.
It's been a melting pot of everything, and most of the people that came here, the Pilgrims, were fleeing religious persecution. So I don't know. I think what I see in the metaphysical community is a lot of people like trying to find their path. So maybe they were raised in the church, or Christianity, and then that was fine, and they were fed a narrative, and then all of a sudden it doesn't fit, and so they try to go out and find something else, and so they just snatch things that seem very cool and interesting and decide they're that. But they try that for a while, and then it doesn't work, and or they try little bits and bobs in this. So it's not quite cultural appropriation, but I don't know. They're trying to honor it, but I think it's better. At least where my path took me is I kind of started a spiritual awakening in 2005, and I didn't, it was one of those traumatic, painful ones. So I kind of woke up with all sorts of esoteric information that I'd never been exposed to, but I just knew stuff. And
what triggered that? Can Can you talk about that? Are you comfortable?
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm comfortable talking about anything, just about. So yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, it's like after that awakening, I sort of had a concept, and I never really, I wasn't raised in the church. I wasn't raised in anything really, other than I mean, if I wanted to do it, I could do it. So I never really read any books or anything, but it's like I sort of had an understanding of Buddhism and Taoism and a lot of the religions. Like I grasped the concept, right, which was really weird because I don't know how I grasped the concept because I never consumed that information, right?
Oh,
So
wow. So did you just wake up one morning with this, or did you have a traumatic event that triggered all of this?
oh yeah, so my kids were had gotten taken into foster care, and I was a hot mess anyway, right? I was a highly functioning addict, and so you juggle all the balls, and I was keeping them up, and then I don't know, it all came crashing down really, and so what it was for me, it was like I tell people, it was like coming face to face with myself in a dark alley, and only one of us was going to get out of there, right? So
Wow.
everything that I thought I knew up until that point, like if you'd asked me certain things about Jim Diddy, then I would have told you, well, things I know for certain are ABC. And then through this awakening, when it all went to shit, I realized that A, B, and C I couldn't have been more wrong, right? So I kind of had to admit, I had a choice there. I could continue to pretend like I had my shit together,
Hmm.
uh, but I'm not real good at pretending. I'm not much of a hypocrite. Or I could just admit that I didn't know anything and just start all over again, and that's pretty much what I did.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, it's been a long time. It was a process, but I still really haven't had any classes or consumed anything. Right? It's and one of the first things I did was I really got comfortable with my intuition. Uh, and we're all intuitive. We all have our gut that tells us things, or this is a bad idea, or this isn't going to work out right. And so early on I started looking at that, and I realized that every time my gut said I shouldn't have done something, it turned out
You
that I
shouldn't
should
have
have
done
done
it.
it. Right? So so I went out on a limb, and I was like, okay, so I'm going to try this. I'm just going to try it for a while. I'm going to actually try to listen to my instincts and see how it works. And so I do good a couple times, and I was like, well, that worked out. And then the old stubborn me come up, and then I wouldn't listen a couple times, and it didn't work out. So that intuitive link's kind of like a muscle, right? The more you use it, the better you get. And then I don't know, I just kind of over the course of several years, I got very comfortable listening to that instinct and that intuition. I think intuition is the voice that spirit uses, mainly our spirit, to communicate with ourselves, right?
That's true. Yeah.
And so I'm still on the fence, right? Like I'm only about 70%, uh, 60 or 70% convinced that all this woo woo stuff is real, right?
Well, I mean, don't you think it's healthy to question things sometimes? You have
Yeah,
to, right? That's how you grow.
exactly. And so I kind of take a scientific approach to it, right? Like I try things. I if somebody says something and I don't assume it's fact, I just assume that's a hypothesis, but I want to see for myself if that's my reality, right?
Right.
So yeah, I think 70 or 80% of the stuff that I see out there, I can explain with science or psychology, but there's 15% that I don't have an explanation for. So,
Hmm.
and that's really what keeps me going with stuff, because that 15% is fascinating, right? I think that's where the magic's at.
Isn't it though? Isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
I probably listen to my spirits a lot more. Well, I shouldn't say probably. I do listen to my spirits a lot more than I used to. Zero in the past, and
Yeah.
it's run me down wrong roads for years. I mean, I've had side trips and journeys that were awful, and chose to not jump off the road or jump out of the car just because sometimes you're on that train wreck and it's just gotta like crash and burn before you decide to move on.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Kind of like the Tiger King. I mean, you watch it, you know how bad it is, but you just keep watching it. and i
Yeah.
and I do that. Like I'll follow that, but I'm learning more and more that I'm a lot happier when I just listen to that voice. It goes so much more smooth.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, I was that kid that I didn't want to be told what a thing was. I had to figure it out for myself. You know, so I think a shamanic path was, um, I think it was a perfect fit for me because it's more about direct revelation, right? So,
Right.
uh, I mean, my reality is not your reality. What's true for me is not necessarily true for you.
Or anybody. We all have our own realities.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I really think that's what's important, right? So it's what's relevant to us as individuals. Uh, and it does. I mean, if I feel the thing to be certain, and it works for me, and it's workable, and I'm happier and better off for it, I'm not. Uh, I don't. I don't have to have a bunch of people in agreement with that, right?
No.
Because
Well, I think don't you feel like you get to a certain level of vibration or dimension or within yourself, comfortable within your own skin, that you don't really care if people agree with you or not, because it doesn't matter. Like their thoughts are valid and my thoughts are valid, and we don't have to think the same way.
yeah, exactly. So a few years ago, I got in this really weird spot. I thought I'd retired and I quit working again, and I was just going to enjoy life and be in the moment. And I felt so calm and so complete and so at peace with everything that, and I mean, I felt really good. And so I would run into friends of mine, and they would look at me and say, "Well, how are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm great." They're like, "No, really?" I was like, "No, I'm really great." And then but they sort of planted that seed in my head. So I was like, "Yeah, I mean, there's no, it's just it was even keel, right? So there's no dynamics. There was no bad days compared to good days, and so I wondered if I wasn't getting depressed or apathetic, right? And I sat with that for a while, and I realized, no, I'm just completely in my center. I was
Hmm.
like, I could I could talk to people and relate with people, and like I wasn't getting pulled out of my center at all. And I that's an awesome place to be, right? So I think that's really the seat of our power. I think that's uh, I don't I mean that's where it's at. Uh, I think we all try to be at our center, and we're center-ish anyway.
Hmm.
You but once you really spend some time there, I mean, we get pulled out for things, right? Because day-to-day life happens. We're still human.
Oh
So,
yeah. Oh yeah.
but it's that sort of awareness, right? Like I know where my center is at now. So because I've identified it, I absolutely know when I'm not in it. You know. So and it's a choice now. It's not just like I get pulled out of it by circumstances or everyday chaos. It's like, well, I'm gonna have to go outside my center now and deal with this. And, okay, I'll do it.
Right. Right.
But I'm coming back, right? So
And that back feels so good. I mean, there's people out there that have never found their center.
right. And so I don't know. I mean, I went off in the new age frame of mind for a while, and I kind of slowly left that behind, right? But they talk about grounding and centering, and I mean that's a good thing to do, but center into the earth. But I mean, just for me, I don't really. That's not my center. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So now that phrase ground and center has a whole new take now. I mean, that's me pulling back into sort of my heart space and just being there with all that. But it's a journey. You don't get there overnight,
Excuse me.
right?
It is a
Uh,
journey, and that back and forth and learning to set boundaries. Boundaries to me are like super important to keep I call it my peaceful center or my peacefulness. That's the center when I'm grounded, and for me that's just that calm where I don't get sucked into things without my permission.
right.
And it happens still. I'm not going to lie. It happens. I get sucked into my kids' drama. I get sucked into other people's sometimes. Or, the person who cuts me off at a traffic light, I allow myself to go down that path. But then
Yeah.
it's like, man, that didn't feel good. An hour later, I'm still mad at that guy. And why am I mad at that? Because now I'm using my time and space to be stupid. And
Yeah.
that is,
And it kind of gives them energy, right? So
yeah. It feels a lot better to be centered and grounded and happy.
So I think that center is kind of like a spider in the middle of a web, you know?
Yeah,
So if you're setting at the center, then you can feel the tugs and all that. Like you can read all that, but I mean, you're sort of sitting in that observation space, right?
that's a great analogy.
Yeah,
I never thought about that, but that is a perfect analogy because spiders feel everything around them and anything that comes up to their web, and they can choose to react to it or just let it get caught in the web and not do anything.
exactly, exactly. And it's a choice, you know. Um, Years ago, you know, so things in the spiritual community, at least around here, kind of come and go in waves, right? So, um, I've been involved in this around here now for probably I don't know, a decade. And so I see topics come up, and it's like it's like the Baskin Robbins flavor of the month, right? So
Hmm.
sometimes it's uh, this or it's that, and some years ago it's like psychic protection was the thing, and so the catchwords were somebody would steal your energy, and you know you don't want them taking your abilities or taking your power. And I thought to myself, that's impossible, right? It's impossible for somebody to take that because it's yours. So yeah, I mean it's only given, and so the choice is: do you consciously and knowingly give it, or do you give it because you're not being mindful about the whole thing? And so it was that realization. You were talking about boundaries. That's what really got me focusing on boundaries. I was like, oh no, right? You have to. Uh, my boundary game got a lot better. So
Oh yeah, watching who comes into your space, who gives you a hug, who shakes your hand, even because that's a sharing of energy, and it's a conscious sharing of energy. Again, your choice. If you reach out there, you're reaching out there to meet somebody's energy. If you don't like them and their energy stinks, don't reach out and touch them.
right, so that's kind of where permissions come in, right? Like it's always better if you have permission. I mean, you can still do things without permission, but it's sort of pushing that energetic cord. They push it halfway, and then you meet it halfway. Then you kind of giving them permission, right?
Right.
Whether those words were used exactly or not. So yeah.
So how do you do your energy work? Tell people how do you approach people, and what is it that you do to work on energies, or how do you even sense energies with people?
Okay. Yeah. So many years ago, early in my path, I kind of um, I had that break from duality, right, where there's good or bad or positive or negative, and I started seeing energy as it's just a scale, right? It's a spectrum. So a vibration has a lower frequency and an upper frequency. Like I would say, people talk about angelic energies and demonic energies.
Hmm.
To me, it's the same frequency, right? I mean, yeah, angelic and demonic is still vibing in that same range, right? It's a spectrum and a scale.
Hmm.
So yeah, I moved out of that duality and I moved more into like a unity consciousness, right? So instead of looking at things as good or bad, I just sort of look at it as what is. And then so when I get a client on the table, I don't ever look at a thing that's bad or needs fixed. Like that's not how I approach that, right? So I try to like that's my sacred space I'm setting. So uh, as a co-creator, consciously I create that space. And so
Hmm.
when they get on the table, I'm already looking at them and creating them as whole. Um, I don't look at them as wounded or somehow deficient, right? I mean, so this is sort of an attention to the human being, and then I just look for bits and pieces that maybe don't fit, maybe they don't resonate with the rest of it, right? So there's things you can make a little bit better. Not that anything's bad. Um, just extract some stuff that doesn't belong and try to put something back in that's more fitting. Uh, it's really kind of hard to explain, but
Hmm.
yeah. It, uh, so that's kind of how I set the tone for the sacred space and initially for the whole session. Um,
That's a really great concept, though. looking at the person as a human being and a whole, because a
Right.
lot of us approach with what's going on, what's blocked, what's energetically cold or is vibrating incorrectly for the body to function, or
Right.
you know.
And so I would tell you that I've seen things that most people say, "Oh, that's terrible. It's not supposed to be there," but I see it like we grow through adversity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, when how a lot of people have like a fast awakening, they always wake up to all these negative spirits around them or negative energies, and they think, "Oh my God, that's horrible," right? Um, I have a theory about that. I think part of it's the fear factor. Maybe they're not that negative. Maybe it's just so weird that there's a little fear that goes with it.
Sure.
But the other thing I think is that adversity or that negativity is our teacher, right? So uh, what I've seen, at least for me, because I had issues at first, and then once I learned to overcome those issues, it's never been a problem again, right? So those sort of negative energies or darker things were stepping stones. It was a qualification for me, right? So you work through that and you figure out how to do that for yourself, and then it's like, okay, so I passed first grade, or that's my fourth grade final, and and so you move on from that. So sometimes I see clients and there's a little something there, and I realize that's not for me to pull, right? I can sort of do things around that to bolster it up, but that's something that they're going to have to overcome as part of their path. And
And that's very true.
and and so I mean, I could try to remove something or pull it out, but it's going to come back anyway. And then um, I just kind of I could let that take its course, but uh, I do try to tell those folks, okay, so here's what you need to do. You should work on this, work on this, work, and those will be the next like 3 steps to get them to the goal of taking that over, right? So, yeah,
So when you work on a person, you kind of give them a prescription, if you will, for better living or something to change to have them work on that.
yeah. Well, yeah. Sometimes, rarely. I mean, I don't. I've had a lot of my clients ask me what I saw or what I think, and I don't like. I'm not a reader, so
Mm-hmm.
unless I feel compelled to say something to them about it, like it's important. If it's like I would be irresponsible if I didn't say it, then I will say something. But
Right.
mostly I don't, because I think everybody's path is their path, right? And so I try to stay very clean when I work with them. Uh, I try not to project what I think they should be or what their outcomes should be. I try to keep all that out of it. I just try to uh, what I try to do is disappear, right? I try to have my personality and my consciousness just I try to just become the awareness and then work that way. Uh,
I mean,
but
that's really deep because most of us are egos. I mean, it's hard. It's hard
but
to take
yeah,
that step back and not let your, I'm not saying being narcissistic or egotistical, but that human side of us, it's hard for me not to want to jump in and say, oh my God, you got to get out of this situation. Like, this is horrible. Because like you said, sometimes that is their path. But then
right,
sometimes as a reader, I feel like they lost their way on their path and they went way further than they needed to go. Now they're punishing themselves and they need to get out of that mode and start living again.
right, yeah, and so for my energy sessions, I just try to do the work, and then sometimes, I mean, sometimes the effects of that work are pretty immediate, and
Hmm.
sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's a month. I don't know. I'm planting the seeds, right? So I don't really know how it's gonna. All I know is I do what I'm called to do, and then like I try to detach from the outcome, right? Like
Hmm.
I feel like if I do good clean work and I come in and I lay it down and that's good clean work, and then I don't know. I mean, what happens after? That's that's not really because of me or even for me to know really. Um,
And that's hard. I mean, that's hard to detach because so many of us metaphysical workers, and I'm speaking in general here though, are almost enmeshed, or we become too attached to people trying to help them and not understand that we don't have to take that on. That's not our issue to take on.
Yeah. So you know, so I see that a lot, and I've seen healers that don't do healing anymore because they can't. Um, Whatever they're working on gets stuck to them. You know,
Hmm.
uh, uh, and I think part of that is because they're invested in the outcome, right? And,
Right.
and my question has always been, why? I mean, why? Why? What's the investment, right? What's the reason for the investment? And so, like, I don't know. I think it's different for everybody, but I think some people want to. Just how do you know you're good, right? How do you know you're actually doing good energy work unless you see the results of it?
Well,
So
and I think there's a I hate to use the word brokenness, but a lot of metaphysical workers or energy workers have been people that had trauma and crisis in their lives. And so that show of I can help fix you so that you don't end up like me, but then you're invested in the outcome because you don't want that person to be broken. So in turn, are we really fixing them or are we trying to fix the broken part of ourselves?
yeah, I see. So I call that a trauma bond, right?
Yep, that's exactly
Um,
what it is.
and and there, uh, I mean, I think everybody intends well, right?
Hmm.
I really do think they intend well, but I don't know how many people realize that they're working through mirrors because I know that everything I do as a healer, I'm doing for myself, right? Like this is my experience. I'm
Hmm.
working on a client, they'll get some benefits out of it, true, but I'm doing that for me, right? Um, I, I mean, my mirrors are. I'm not working through my mirrors anymore, right? So, but I see healers, and they have a wound that's not completely healed themselves, and they keep getting clients with that wound, and
Yep,
they think it's because they're uniquely suited. No, that's the mirror, right?
that is the
That's the mirror
mirror.
telling you look within yourself for what you keep seeing. Uh, and then because of that wound is very similar to their clients, whatever they pull out, it seems to fit, and then they sort of get this energetic stuff stuck to them, right? Um, yeah, I think. I mean, I think the less ego or the less personality or identity you can have in that whole process, I think it just makes you very clean. You
Hmm.
know.
And clean is where we want to be. Um, we have viewers that comment on that all the time, like, well, I go in and I'm not protected, and I go in and I do these things, and it's like, no, no, you want to operate as cleanly as possible.
If you're see, I may have an unpopular opinion about protection. I think our consciousness is sort of creating everything we see, right? I think there's agreed upon reality, and then the rest of it we sort of create it. So
Right.
think I think if you think you need protection, you've sort of automatically and subconsciously created yourself as being weak and vulnerable. So I think if I spend very little time thinking about protection, I do things it's just like energetic housekeeping, or it's prudent, right? But I do that all in the uh, I do all that from the standpoint of managing my energy and how to housekeep my energy.
Right.
I don't look at it like I have to keep somebody from getting in. I look at it like I do things because it keeps me stable or centered, or keeps me where I want to be, or peace of mind. And, but yeah, so if same way same way, like I can I can be that guy that goes into a room full of people with tuberculosis or bubonic plague, and I'll hang out in there and I'll walk out and I won't catch it because I never want to walk in assume, like, have you heard people like that? Like,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
get away from me. I don't want to catch it. So now
It's
you're
very much mind over matter.
right. So now you put yourself in a position where you're likely to catch it because you're fearful of catching it, right? I
Hmm.
just never think about it. I'm like, oh wow, like I could live with lepers and come out of that just fine. So,
And
I
that's
don't,
awesome. There's where I want to be right there. I thought like that until COVID hit and the lockdowns hit and I got so critically ill that like that put that fear in me, and to go into places where people are doing things, have medical contagious issues now, that's like, I'm still working on that one.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was life threatening for me. So that put me in
Right.
a spot where I had never been in my life before. I never was the person who overhand sanitized, and were, I mean, I'm like feeding my kids chicken nuggets in the grocery cart at Walmart. Like, it's
Right.
not let's wash our hands first. It's like, oh, you dropped it on the cart. Go ahead and eat it. It's a 5 second rule, right? It builds immunity. Was never worried about that until I got sick, and then yeah. But that's so true. We put ourselves in the position of that.
Yeah.
Because the minute you're worried about getting something, now it's entered your consciousness, and that's gonna be more attracted.
Right.
That's the energy you're drawing for sure.
Right. So I've had clients come in with like really heavy stuff, right, or terminal stuff, and I don't. I mean, they tell me what we're working with, and I'm like, okay, so just get on the table. Like I don't sort of harbor that fear. Like, I'm
Mhm.
working on, for example, I'm working on a pancreatic cancer. Oh my God, what if it sticks, right? Like, like that's sort of not my thought. My whole
No.
goal is just for their betterment, peace of mind. I don't know. Like you can still have healing happen even around the terminal illness. Uh,
Oh, absolutely.
you're probably not going to correct the illness. I mean, anecdotally, there are people out there dissolving cancer tumors. I haven't seen it, but you can still bring a lot of clarity and peace of mind and some calmness to somebody that's in their end days or transition, right? So there's
Well,
always
not only that, but you can make them healthier and extend their days with peace of
yes,
mind, because the more stressed a person is with an illness, the faster they're going to go down the tubes.
right,
So if you're
because
providing
they're
the
sort of in that vibration, right? Like, oh my God, and this is the
right, but if they're peaceful and they're happy and they're going out to the best of their abilities and they're living life, doing the things they want, that in itself is going to extend their lifespan, because
yes,
or the
yeah,
happy vibration vibrates everything in that happy vibration.
yeah, and that's the way it should be, right? Like, I'm going to drive it like I stole it all the way out the gate.
Amen. And I'm not going to steal something that's junky either.
Yeah,
I mean, when I steal it and I drive it, it's going to be good. Just warning to those people. It's going to be exactly what I want.
right.
So you said you like to work with people in altered state of consciousness. Can you go into that more?
So, yeah, I'm a pretty good surfer. Yeah, I've been working with sacred plant medicine for a while, but so I have different states of consciousness. Like it resonates with energetic vibrations for me, and then so uh, I think we're very experiential, right? So when we've been in a certain state or a certain vibration, uh, and we really integrate it and we're present with that, then that sort of becomes part of us. So um, I think once you've been somewhere, you can get back to that point, right? You just kind of have to put your mind and how it felt and your body felt, and so I think you can reach that energetic state again. And so yeah, so really what I'm working with on my client is body, but like traditional shaman work with all sorts of spirits, land spirits. I'm really only focused on the spirit for my client. That's it. That's
Mhm.
all I really care about. So for that, for their sort of expansion and growth, that's my aim. Uh, and so I sort of access different energetic levels and vibrational states for that. Uh, and because I mean, they're in my sacred space, right? So I think a healer and a client, it sort of makes a bond. It's that permission thing. So
Absolutely.
I set the bubble. They give permission. They tell me what we're working on, and then energetically, we're all bonded. We're all bonded in that bubble.
Hmm.
And so I think, especially when I drum for them a lot, right? Like I'm accessing different states.
Oh
Um,
yeah. And now
and
you make your own drums too. You drum over people and make drums as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't make them as much as I used to. I used to make them and sell them, but since I moved into healing work, I mean, I still will for custom orders, but I'm more focused on the healing now. I think it's just sort of part of my art, right? Uh,
Hmm.
So yeah, so for a drumming session, I'm already connected to my drum. I just have to get the client to relax and connect to the drum, and then we're all sort of connected to the drum. So through that, I can push a lot of energy through that because that's already an extension of me, and now they're connected to that extension. So it's like a shared thing. I think anyway. But,
Hmm. Well, it's a vibration that you're sending into out of surrounding them,
yeah,
which is the connection.
yeah, and so at events, I've had a lot of people worry about how deeply they can get into the experience because it's loud there sometimes, right?
Oh,
And
for those viewers that have never been at an event, yeah, you've got 100, what, 150 people coming through the door, and 50 to anything between 30 and 50, 75 vendors that are all talking to people at a time. And so, and then you've got other instruments sometimes being played.
yeah, yeah, and so far, knock wood. Those clients that were particularly worried about it after the session, and they get done, I was like, "How was the noise?" And they will tell me, I was only aware of me, you, and the drum, and I'm like, "Awesome! That's bubble building at its finest, right? I mean, that's the goal."
That
So,
is, that is. And that creating a sacred space is so important, not only for the healing of the person, but to keep the energy within that sacred space. A lot of people worry about, I have had other vendors go, gosh, I hope there's nothing like running around because so and so's doing this over here and that energy is going to get loose. Or, I'm working on somebody and they've got some attachments and I'm working on that attachment because you and I do different things. And they're like, you set that loose in that environment?
yeah,
Well, yeah, I sent it over to your table number 33. No, no, it doesn't work that way. That's not how that works. You know,
yeah,
you don't have an attachment running around on four legs, hopping on tables and looking like something from Ghostbusters. That's not.
yeah. Well, I mean, it could because there's healers have different levels of experience, right?
Oh,
And
that's okay. That is true.
so
I'm
I can absolutely see somebody who's maybe new or doesn't have a full understanding, like pulling something off and just letting it go. I could potentially see that, but yeah,
But those of us that at least have some concept, we have a sacred space. You set your space. you know, it,
I try to. I used to think I would do that when I was vending. I would set a space around my vending booth, and over the years, like I thought everybody did that because we're all
no, and
yeah.
they don't take care of their space at all.
So, and that's what I couldn't believe that. I was like, wait, like, I mean, because I've heard you guys all weekend talking this wild talk, and like, you're not doing the things. Like, how did, like, I don't know how that happens.
Hmm.
Uh,
And I'm amazed because I'm like, when I set up my space, because we always go the night before when we have that opportunity and set up our booths, like I'm walking around that thing, I'm spraying that thing, I've got my perimeter set, and people come in and they go, "Oh man, it feels so good just to be in your space." Well, yeah, I worked at that. Like
yeah,
that's
right. It's not an accident. Yeah,
you come into my space, I want you to, and take
yeah.
a breath. And
I,
Russell
I,
just plugged you. If people want to check you out, he just put your link on
okay.
the comment section.
Yeah, I sort of feel like Rome in the barbarian centuries, right? Like I've got a wall built, and like this is, I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I don't want, and I don't, not to discourage anybody from vending next to me, but I don't want their shit coming into me. Like, because like you said, some of them are kind of loose cannons. They don't,
yeah,
you know, and
well,
and that's just part of their journey. I mean, maybe we all started out that way. I don't know.
yeah,
You
oh
know,
yeah,
but with time and experience, we've learned that you should do certain things to
yeah.
protect your people.
Well, they'll figure it out. We'll all figure it out. There's nothing bad. I mean,
Oh no.
it's kind of fun, really, right? But um, yeah, I think when you start directing energy with your thoughts, and you know, or like people like to practice manifesting, and so when you start sort of intentionally creating your reality, It's like a muscle too, right? So the more you do that, the better you get at it. But the flip
Yep.
side of that's true. So when you're not mindful or you're emotional or you have a little bit of jealousy or spite or whatever, those thoughts are created too. So um, yeah, I,
And be
I,
careful with where your mind goes.
yes,
You know,
yeah,
you have to be careful where your thoughts are, and we all. I mean, I don't know anybody that can keep their mind clean all the time. I mean, we have those moments. We're human, but giving yourself the same grace you would give other people, hopefully, and telling yourself, okay, that went down that path, but it's time to regather and regroup and focus because that was not,
yeah,
that wasn't where I wanted to be. That wasn't the energy I wanted to create.
right. So yeah, you tell me what you think. I think it's not that you have a bad thought or you have that emotional thing. It's where you brood, right? So
Right.
like I think if you're doing spell work or energy work or whatever, it takes a little bit of focus, concentration over a little amount of time to make things happen, right? So I think if you're having that moment of anger or jealousy or spite and you internalize that and hold on to it and brood on it for
There's
three
where
or
the
four
problems occur.
for
Yeah.
3 or 4 days, yeah. But if it just kind of comes and goes, like, oh yeah, look at this, and, shake it off and walk it off. I don't. But I think that's a responsibility that comes with energy work, right? Like,
Absolutely. Well, and I think that's why so many energy workers get sick and they run down, and a lot of them look like they've been with the energy for a long time. You have to flush it and let it go. I mean, it's
yeah,
not,
absolutely.
first of all, like you said, it's not your energy to keep, it's theirs. And the other thing is just keeping yourself uplifted and doing the mental health things you need to do to stay focused yourself. And rumination's a big thing. Like, you don't, it's not something you want to tuck in bed with you. Any of the work that I do, I don't tuck in bed with me and worry about it overnight. And I do my job. It's like a job. I do my job. I focus on my spell work. I get it done. I move it on.
Yep.
I don't question. Gosh, I wonder 24 hours later, do I need to go back and do? I'm not going to focus on that. Is it going to work? Do I have to do this? If you're doing that, then you shouldn't be doing the work because your intentions set. If I do it, it's gonna work.
Yeah. Or just kind of give yourself the out, like I did the best I could, or
Right.
yeah,
Or the outcome was meant to occur the way it occurred.
yeah,
Even, like I'm not gonna ruminate over it. It's it's not healthy for me and it's not healthy for anybody around me.
exactly. Yeah, I just try to have that. I just try to have that heart space open, and I'm just kind of I don't know about the highest outcome. That could be a slippery term, right? But I want what's the best for them for their benefit, and so I do what I do towards that, and I don't know. I mean, if it works, it works, and I hope it works. If it doesn't work, I don't know. I'll try again, but yeah. So that kind of stays clean for me, and I don't know. I just so I saw myself some years ago. I saw 3 rituals where I was doing healing rituals, and I wasn't doing healing work at the time, but I saw me using tools. Uh, one of them was a drum. I had the drum, and so following the intuition, right? I just went with it, and made the tools, and so here's these 3 separate healing ceremonies. I didn't really get any indication which one I should use when, so I strung them all together, and that's what I do. So um, I used to sort of tell folks, I try to tell them, well, this is that, and this is sort of like that, and or I'd have a list of things I did, and then I realized that it really wasn't accurate because I was just going to go through the same motions for everybody, right,
Mm-hmm.
and then just deal with whatever I found. So yeah, now I kind of pitch that like just get on the table and we'll work, and I don't know, uh, so it's a little bit like Reiki what I do, and a little bit not, uh,
Mm-hmm.
I do like to put hands on because I've been working with my hands since I was a kid, and so construction, whatever, and creating things. So I'm pretty good uh, w- with hands and fingers directing energy through that, right?
Hmm.
Uh, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, if I go to somebody's feet and I put my hands on their ankles, I just kind of visualize a little current of energy running up one leg and around and down. And so this is part of the 15%. I can't explain, right? So I'll feel blockages or pressures in my body. Sometimes I feel if they're having a physical pain in their body, I'll feel that in my body.
So you do that too. You connect with because I'll tell people, oh my gosh, okay, so what did you do at work this week with your right hip? And it's like, oh, I tripped over the dog, or I got out of bed wrong, or I was, or what's going on in your gut? Well, I had a fight with my husband, and it's like I just centered and I'm ruminating about that. Well, that would be, your gut, your liver, your spleen. Okay, that tells me that's.
Yeah, yeah. So that blows people away, right? They're like, how do you know that? And I said that's at 15%. I can't explain. I don't really know, but I trusted enough to believe it. And at first I would ask because I needed that validation, right?
Hmm.
So I would feel a sharp pain in my back or under the shoulder blade on the right side. So I would ask them like, "Are you having pain in your back?" And they're like, "Yeah." So like under the right shoulder blade, they're like, "Oh my god," so I needed that validation, right?
Right.
And then after a while, I got to the point. It's like, okay, so I've had 50 clients and they validated every time. So how many more times are going to ask for validation before I just like trust it? So
Right, right.
I just kind of stepped into it and was like, okay, so hey, it's good because now I don't have to talk as much, right? Less
So,
words.
yeah, because you don't point it out to them or ask them. I ask them to make, because the clients I work with I see regularly, so I'll point it out to them, like, so you've got that again in your left shoulder. Uh-huh. So what are we doing about that now? Because this has been
Right,
like, 3 treatments, and it's like you said you were going to let that go, and where are we with that?
right, right.
Because I mean, you can keep coming to me, that's great, but like, what are we doing with it? Yes, Rave, she wants to know, can you do it remotely? Do you do any
Um,
of your healings remotely?
I can. I don't know. I don't know how effective it is. I mean, I've done them before, but sort of, I kind of cap everything off with a little bit of drum work over the top, and I think it kind of shakes everything up, So when you inject energy, it's like an injection. It goes in the tissue, and then you have to wait for it to migrate. And I think the drumming just sort of whatever like bits and bobs are attached, it just kind of washes it off, and then it shakes everything out and kind of
Mhm.
homogenizes energy. But yeah, I mean, I could do it remotely. I
Yeah.
work through a proxy, right? I'm still using my hands, but I'll lay a pillow across my knees, and so I do the same ceremonies just over a pillow. Or if I had a big stuffed animal, that'd probably be better. But
I've been asked that before. I have a Reiki table, and I have friends that have a diagram like on a piece of paper of like a human,
mhm.
and they work the diagram with their fingers while sitting. I can't. I'm a visual that has to be like, I work enough with my hands and the energy flow. So, and my brain is wired wrong, I swear. I can't think right and left unless, and I think that's the nurse in me too. I got to be at the table to think right and left because I'm so used to working a hospital bed and doing things like that.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
walk around my table, and so I put people on Zoom, and and they don't even watch. Like, we're just connected so we can talk if we have to. And
right.
I drum and I spray and I do all these things, and I work on the table as if the person is there.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
But it makes it efficient for me because then if I say, "What's going on with your left leg?" then they can answer me, and I've got that. Okay, I know. Okay, you injured this. How far up does it go? So I know to go in deep with the Reiki and do. So it's intuitive, but it's also a connection with the person. But I have
right.
to walk around the table. It doesn't do me like I'm still like doing the physical work, whether they're there or not.
Yeah,
because I it's looking at a piece of paper doesn't do it. I can't. It just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, yeah, it's just I mean, I've done so many in-person sessions that it's just I could try to figure out how to do it, but then I'd have to focus a little bit harder, and
Mm-hmm.
I just I really don't know. I just do my ceremonies.
Yeah,
That's it, right?
absolutely. Hi, Tanya. um, so you plant medicine. Can you get into that? Are you comfortable getting into plant medicine?
Yes.
So like I do hop hay
Uh-huh.
and other plants that I work with a lot of hemp. Um, I will work with THC and then other organics as well. What do you work with?
Um, so I started about 3 years ago on a personal regimen with active mushrooms,
Yes.
and so for myself, I was doing always like intention is everything with that, right? I mean, there's a lot of information out there with psychedelics, but I was doing it monthly as part of my own healing journey, and then
Mm-hmm.
I sort of found, over the course of 3 or 4 months, like I felt that heart space opening up,
Yes.
um, and so it's like every ceremony kicked the door open a little bit further and never quite shut, and so it just continued to kick open and kick open, and so I like that medicine. It's very good about uh, kind of holding you and loving you and supporting you through the process. Um, I did not have a lot of traumatic stuff come up for me, but I've done a lot of extensive shadow work before I started working that regimen. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, what it was about was that heart space and kind of opening up that compassion, and because I mean, uh, I'm an Aries with a Capricorn moon, so heart walls are sort of standard issue for Capricorns, I think, generally speaking, right? And so I had a heart wall, and like it served a purpose for a long time. And then it got to the point where I had a gate. I had a sliding gate on the heart wall, uh, so I could open that when I wanted to, and then keep it closed most of the time. And then I don't know that. Anyway, the medicine just sort of dismantled all that. And,
I
it's
had
good.
the same. Tanya's saying me too. I had the same experience with mushrooms. Like it taught me, or it taught me. It showed me what love was. You know,
And,
like
and where that
love,
and
like
where
I
that
love
starts.
my partner, not that kind of love. Like love of myself and love of the connection, the bond with all humans. It just it showed me so many things and allowed for peace in a headspace that's like a squirrel sometimes.
Yes. So all the it occurred to me early on in the session that all the when I closed my eyes, all these beautiful things that I was seeing, uh, that's not outside. That's not outside you. That
No,
is you. That's your own consciousness, right? So
right.
it's this really weird thing where it takes what is normally the observer, what observes other things, and splits it so the observer can observe itself. And it's a really weird thing, but yeah. So so my thought was like, well, how damaged can I really be if this sort of beauty and
Oh
amazement
my gosh, yes.
exists in me? Well, how bad can I really be, right? And
Hi,
so yeah,
Greg.
yeah, it's kind of spun from that, and then you know, it I don't know. I keep opening. It opens other doors, and I have other realizations, and then, I don't know. And then it got to the point where one time the medicine told me that our relationship was going to change, and I said okay, right, and it has changed considerably, and then so I mean, people started finding me to facilitate their experiences for them. There's a lot of fear around that, right? Like
There is a lot of fear.
I think
It's
there's
like, shh, let's switch forums. Let's don't talk about it. Don't text me about this. And I'm like, you know,
yeah. So and everybody hears their horror stories and they don't want to have a bad experience. I personally think there's no such thing as a bad experience. I think some of them are more challenging. The challenging ones you grow from. I really don't think the medicine ever gives you what you don't need at the time.
I
So,
I would second that.
um,
And I
so
listen to it. In microdosing, I listen to it on those days. And I have very few of them, but when it comes crashing down and it's like, you will sleep. By God, you're going to lay here and you're not going to do shit all day. And it's like, I fought that at first. And I'm like, no, wait a minute. I'm having a day where I'm going to curl up with my electric blanket and my kitty cats. And this is what I'm going to do. There's a reason that I need to do that. It's telling me that it's now self time. Apparently, I don't have that awareness, and it has to tell me it's now downtime and you're going to be down. Okay,
right.
today I'm going to be down.
So, anecdotally, I've had people tell me that maybe they have a little ADD or ADHD, they're microdosing, and now they can focus and stay on task for the day. Uh, uh, I've had people tell me how much it's helped them with their depression, or how much it's helped them with their anxiety, how much it's just helped them with their overall mood. You know,
Hmm.
uh, I'm not really a researcher, but like I don't, I'm not very secretive about it. Like I'm a huge proponent of this. I really think it can help everybody to a certain
I
degree.
I would agree with that. Greg, he's got a podcast on Friday evenings. He said this is another medicine that people become paranoid with.
Yeah,
It depends. I think it really depends on how much you're doing. I mean, we're not talking about a huge amount every day. That we're definitely not talking about psychedelic experiences every single day.
Oh no, well you can't do it every day.
No.
It's impossible to do it every day because you physically the tolerance goes up, right? So if you were to do one amount today, you would have to do twice that much tomorrow to get the same effect, right? So by the third day, it's exponentially got to the point where it's just physically impossible to do it, right? But
Hmm.
it doesn't. I mean, researchers are using this to overcome addictions, right? So 30-year alcoholics are using some macrodose psychedelic trips, and they're not drinking now, So the research they're doing with that stuff is exciting right now for neurogenesis and
Oh, it is, and I so wish that they would like start the studies with VA patients.
yes, with the neuropathy and because yeah, what they're looking at now with neurogenesis, they stack it with B6,
Hmm.
and it's regrowing the sheath over the nerve. So
Absolutely, it is.
yeah, yeah,
And that's not just psychedelic mushrooms. That's also your lion's mane and the
yeah,
other blends of mushrooms. It's amazing the neuron growth that occurs and the synapsing of things firing and picking up that can regrow and rework is amazing.
yeah. It's a and it's an amazing organism, right? So the way it communicates and interacts with itself over distances, it's really incredible. So
Yeah, it does. It literally talks to other groups of mushrooms, which a lot of people don't realize that they do that. To me, that's amazing how they can send out little wavelengths and vibrations and communicate because we, you know, have been taught, oh, these things don't have feelings, these things don't communicate. They're beneath us. They're way above us.
right, and so I use it like as an analogy for that unity consciousness because that mass is all one organism, right? So the individual mushrooms are fruit from the organism, but it is all one organism. It is all directly connected. What happens a mile to the west in that organism is felt and experienced by the entire organism, right? It's all knowledge. So I sort of look at that with how we're connected with our consciousness, right? Um, we're not in nature; we are nature. We're fruits of the earth, just like the squirrels and
Oh
the
yeah.
walnuts and the apples, and so that's sort of that relational awareness, right? And so once we start realizing that what happens in Europe is going to affect us too, or or the pollution or radioactivity in the reactor in Japan, that's going to affect us too. That's not in Japan. That's all of us, right? So, so yeah, I kind of look at fungus and mycology is a reminder of that, right? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
just like animals, like everything's a teacher, I think, because the animal kingdom, we can learn so much. We learn so much from our pets. We can learn from the bees. We learn from the seasons. I mean, my experience with existence of Mother Earth is everything's a cycle, right? Everything is rhythm related, and so
Our bodies are very rhythm driven.
yes, we breathe a cadence. Our heart beats the cadence. We have spring, summer, fall, and winter. We have seasons. Isn't that sort of when we're born? Isn't that our spring? And then
Mm-hmm.
um, through our 20s and 30s, isn't that sort of our summer? And our fall would maybe be in the 50s and 60s, and winter would be, I mean, isn't that sort of that's
Absolutely.
our life
And
is that?
then, yeah, the water and then the moon phases and the tide coming in and out and the water in our bodies becoming more and less with the
Right,
tide and the changes in behaviors with the moon and the tides and everything that it's all different cycles of different things.
right. We're absolutely not outside the rhythm of existence.
No.
I mean, even the turning of the planet. So, um, I think that's a lot. And it's only we sort of over here in the United States, we sort of have this concept like everything is this way, but I mean, we're really very localized and we're kind of isolated here, right? So, lots of cultures or other regions they already understand this connection. They
Hmm.
already understand the interrelatedness of human beings. It's new to us. We're getting it, right? Uh,
It's
I
coming
really,
though. It's
I
coming.
really think over here in the West that's our problem, right? I think people don't really see people, and they don't
Oh gosh, no,
they
no.
don't realize So when the internet hit, it was Yahoo. Yahoo had chat rooms, right? And I loved it because I met people from all over the world, right? I met people in South Africa. I met people in Romania. I met people in Malaysia. I didn't even know Malaysia had this. How isolated I was. I thought Malaysia was like grass thatch roofs and huts. I didn't even know they had internet and towers over there, right? But
Hmm.
so I talked to these people from everywhere, South America, Australia, everywhere. And oddly enough, I'm chatting for hours with them. Uh, Nobody ever mentioned politics. No, nobody ever mentioned the political landscape of their country or democracy or whatever they had going on. Uh,
Hmm.
One time, somebody in Romania said they missed the communists, and I said, "Well, why is that?" And he said, "Because when the communists were here, at least we got food. Now we're starving, right? Because nobody feeds them. They're poor, and nobody feeds them." But what I found as a common denominator for humanity is that everybody pretty much wanted the same thing, right? They wanted to live as comfortable and happy a life as they could. Um, they wanted to feel safe, and they wanted more opportunities for their children than they had, and that's it. And so talking to people in dictatorships, republics, democracies, who knows what, and
Sure.
that was the common human denominator. That's all they want. And that's
Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
that's
I mean, it's the
that
good old
that
Maslow:
right.
food, water, shelter.
So we sort of consume this media narrative, right? Like they're all Muslims in the Middle East and they hate Americans. I know they don't hate James because James has never been over there to offend anybody, right? So,
Right.
um, and I think that's just, I don't know, it's kind of constructed and we're taught a thing and it's not necessarily a thing.
It's not a thing. I have been welcomed by anyone and everyone that I have met that I have been kind to. I have to say that as well because there's always those situations where you meet under unpleasant situations and circumstances and maybe that didn't go so well. But that's not to me. It's not a given by nationality or color or anything like that. It's attitude. And if I meet you with bad attitude, I'm going to expect to get bad attitude back. And if I meet you with good attitude, then I can honestly say if I'm nice to people, they've always been nice to me back.
Yeah,
No, I
I
mean,
mean, let's face it. Not everybody like we're all different. Not everybody's likable, right? I don't find
that's
everybody likable. I mean, I try to understand where they're coming from, but that doesn't mean if I had 1,000 people and I had to pick who to hang with for the afternoon, I'm ever gonna pick that one. You know,
right, right.
and that's perfectly fine because that's just I mean,
That's human nature.
yeah, we're entitled to that. So
Not all
yeah,
dogs but smell good.
yeah, yeah.
You know?
So yeah, I mean, I kind of hope eventually we kind of expand into that. You know, I mean, I see a lot of people talking about growth. Um, I used to talk about growth, but I think growth kind of suggests a vertical thing, right? So if it's vertical, somebody has to be taller and somebody has to be shorter. So somebody's more and somebody's less than. And I don't really think that's a good way to look. I look at it now like expansion, right? Because you're only going to get so tall before you hit your head on the ceiling. But you can expand in an infinite way, right? You can
Mhm.
expand to encompass the your species, the planet, the universe, and yeah. So yeah, my hope is that at least over here in this country, people start seeing people and just you know we're all pretty much the same. We're not everybody's special, but nobody's really that special, right? So
Right. Well, and in the scheme of things, each one of us is but a speck of sand in the universe.
oh yeah, this is all very temporary. So
You know, it's like we're gonna be blown and washed and moved like that speck of sand, but we are literally have the existence of a speck of sand considering what's out there. Now that speck of sand can make a difference.
yeah, well if you think about statistics, there's 7 billion humans on the planet, right?
Hmm.
Statistically, somebody out there has had the same experience as I've had, right? Statistically, somebody out there probably feels the same way about something and has the same likes and dislikes as I have. Uh, it's math. I mean, there's no way it couldn't be that way. 7 billion is a lot, right?
That is a lot.
There has to be somebody out there that feels the same way as I do or thinks the same thing. So, um, yeah, that's what I mean when I say everybody's special, but nobody's really special. So,
It's interesting that you brought up the whole how many people are out there in the same experience because um, with the psychedelics there's a whole thing on people who go into a psychedelic ceremony and the mothership and the whole thing and there's that was my experience and like I had done no research, none, hadn't read books, nothing, not my area, nothing. And the person that I was experiencing with started laughing and she goes, "Have you heard of Sophia's Dragon's Codex?" And I said, "Nope." And she pulls out this huge book that I shit you not, it's a good 3 inches thick and it's a large book and very small print. And she slaps it down on the coffee table and she goes, "There you go. Hundreds and thousands of people have had that same experience and it's written in this book and they've seen the exact same things you've just described and it's all tied in." And I'm like, mind blown. I mean, that in itself was like, oh crap. Now wait
yeah,
a minute. How many people think about the age range? And I'm 62 and there's people in their teens and people in their 20s and people in their 40s and 50s and they're all seeing the same thing from
yeah,
different walks of life at different times in their life.
yeah. So my question would be: is a shared hallucination really a hallucination? Right.
I absolutely not.
I don't think so. I mean, if you have 50 unrelated people and 49 of them have the same experience and it's not been
It
discussed,
can't be. It's got to be a collective consciousness.
it's got to be something in the ethers, right? So, um, yeah,
Or a memory from the past that's genetically been coded into us. I mean, there's to me that's just
See, and this is some more of that 15% that keeps me going, right? Because how do you explain that?
Greg,
Like,
what do you mean? No, it's not. Oh, no, it's not just a fluke. Yeah, no, it's not a fluke.
yeah. So that's that 15% of the mystery, right? Like, I like to think of myself as a mystic, so I'm trying to, I don't think you can ever know the universe, but you can know of it, and so I'm trying to learn it. But that's that 15% that keeps me going because like nobody can explain that.
No,
It,
that's crazy to me. Unless you operate with the thinking of, like the Borg collective, where we are all tied in, and the more I open my eyes and my mind, the more I see things that you go back to sci-fi shows,
mm-hmm.
and there's little bits and pieces of those things that have occurred, like they're real, like they put it there in plain sight, like
Yeah, yeah,
so you're sitting there watching that, and I'm thinking, Star Trek, the Borg, the
yeah,
one collective.
yeah. Well, so like I'm currently pondering the notion that we're all sort of just this same consciousness, and so it's not individual streams. Um, I think there's an underlying common consciousness for all of us, right? And that's sort of how we're creating this. And I think that's where the shared realities come in.
Wasn't that the Mandela effect?
Yeah, I don't know. Is it? Maybe.
I mean, explain that one.
Yeah, yeah. I
I
don't.
mean, it's either really good brainwashing,
Yeah,
or it's a state of consciousness that everybody's on the same thread.
yeah. Yeah. We all have that in. We all have an internal I voice, our inner I. So if you were to not use your mouth and talk to yourself, it, and it doesn't age. So it sounded the same way now as it did when you were 5 years old, right? And so that's fascinating to me. And I tell people, like, I don't know. I don't know what yours sounds like. I can't know. I can't experience that. But I know what mine sounds like. But it's an interesting hypothetical. What if your inner voice sounds just like my inner voice? And so my thought is what if that's the persistent eternal consciousness? What if that's what connects all of us, and we're just in sort of different avatars and like different simulations of the same consciousness, right? Sometimes I think that consciousness is trying to experience itself through itself, right? So we're experiencing ourselves through the other, and it's an interesting thought. I don't know what to think about it yet, but I do ponder that sometimes. So
Maybe we'll figure it out someday.
well, yeah, I think I'm probably not going to figure it out in this life, right? I don't think that's going to be something you figure out in the 3D reality,
Oh, yeah, I know. No, that's not 3D. That's a lot higher.
but yeah,
That's a lot
I
higher.
probably couldn't. I will admit sometimes I think about it too hard. It makes my head hurt.
Maybe we're just not meant to know that.
Yeah, I doesn't. Yeah, I don't think it matters. I think.
It's kind of like meeting yourself in the hallway. You probably don't want to do that.
Yeah, I just. Yeah, I got that inquisitive mind. I can't leave it alone. But I will say that sometimes it'd be better if I didn't. Uh, I think I would be much happier if I didn't have these questions and wonder.
Yeah, but don't the questions kind of spur us on? Like they make us challenge and question even the things that we do. That's how we evolve. That's how we get better or stronger or healthier or whatever.
Well, it keeps me going because what's driving me is not going to work Tuesday morning, and I'm
Call
not living,
in.
I'm not living for a 12 pack on the weekend. So yeah, I mean, we gotta, we all sort of find that valuable thing in our life, and hopefully, um, I mean, I know a lot of young people out there that are raising kids and making house payments, car payments, and in reality, they're manifesting a 60-hour work week so they can pay all the bills, and like I've been there.
Oh, wait,
So,
yeah,
uh,
I won't go back.
I mean, we got to do what we got to do, but I think, I mean, the whole spiritual thing is very good. It's very good for me to fall into that, And then, but I do think at the end of the day, you have to walk your spiritual path with very practical feet, right? So,
Absolutely.
um,
Good arch support and
yeah.
good arch
Well,
support and some cushion or barefoot. I mean, whichever.
yeah, so like from 2012 to 2015, everybody was, on the internet, and everybody you met, they seemed so upset that they got incarnated into Earth life because they belong in another galaxy or whatever, uh, yeah, I mean, it's kind of depressing to listen to, right? It's like, how did I get here? Well, why ask why? I mean, you're here now, right? So make the best of it. I mean, or you can be,
Enjoy.
yeah, you can be really gloomy about it, or you can just drive it like you stole it all the way out the gate, right? So,
Well, and with that circle around, drive it like you stole it. For those of you that just tuned in, that was actually, we started off with that. Um, it's 10:17 and time to wrap up because we could go on and on and on and chit chat for hours. And I so appreciate you being on the show. Any shout outs you need to give or any plugs you want to give for anything you're doing, your gigs
uh,
coming up or anything?
yeah, I guess so. September 14th and 15th in Independence, Omnia Events is putting on called the Steampunk Paracon. I will be there doing healing work, and I'll actually miracle. I'll probably have maybe 6 or 7 drums to get rid of. So it's the only drums I made this year. So that would be a good place to catch me. If you got some energetic work, come see me. Um, I'm old school indigenous healer, so you pay whatever you comfortable paying. I work for sweet potatoes. I work for popsicles. If you can't afford to pay anything, I'm not turning anybody away. So I'm in service. So come on out and see me there. Um, I guess that's about it. I thank you very much for having me, Julie. It's been fun.
I have so enjoyed you, and I know we have a great time when we do shows. I'm unfortunately not going to be at Omni events. I'm going to be on vacation. Um,
Good
I'm
for you.
taking. We do a lot of traveling with events, and that's our vacations, our events, and they're working vacations. But we're going to go to Denver, Colorado, and then go up through Arizona, and we're covering a large portion of Arizona, and then coming back to Missouri, and then turning around a day and a half. I don't know, Russell can correct me. A day and a half, 2 days later, Russell and his dad. Russell's the guy that we were on with. He's my podcast person, and also Beyond Life Paranormal Research with his dad. So Raven's Eye, which is my paranormal group with my husband, we are going to go to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania with Nespers and Get Haunted's Warren Terracon.
Oh, nice.
So, and we're not vending. We're going to play the entire weekend.
That is awesome. Yeah.
Any CE5s? Greg, he's calling that something else now. I can't remember what he's calling it. I have not been on any CE5s lately. That's the alien. That's Rupert. You know Rupert
Yes.
from the events. But I'm hoping to do some paranormal research stuff while we're in Gettysburg. I'm taking Katie Stafford's boxes. I've got the Wise Man and the OG and his little ink box. And then we're taking just some of our own equipment to Gettysburg with us and doing some recordings and some Estes methods and stuff like that.
Cool. Very cool.
So I'm gonna miss all of those shows because we're gonna be on the road, but it's gonna be on the road for fun. I mean, gigs are fun too, but they're work. This is
Yeah.
going to be fun.
Yeah. It's good. You can't.
Yeah.
You have time for yourself. So.
Oh, there we go. Reboot. I was like, what happened? What happened?
Yeah, I got you now.
So thank you so much for being with us. It has been a joy. Hang on in the back room. And the rest of you guys, we'll see you next Sunday night at the Spiritual Speakeasy. Got another set of great guests that are going to be on. So you want to tune in and see the next show as well. Always something new. Love you guys. Thanks so much. Have a good night.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.